Hi, Dylan. I wanted to provide you some feedback, and you're definitely getting close. And because you have some integer fields that you're using in your model, which I think is correct, integer or double would have worked for some of your expenses, there is an extra step involved. So all right, let's get started. So it says that you are struggling with the update button because you can't access the text fields. And so that is happening because when you use the graphical the GUI builder within NetBeans, so let's go to design, and if you check these text fields, you'll notice that it'll say, here, let me go to a different one because I changed that one already. They're automatically defined as private, okay? So that means that you can only access them within the expenses jpanel.java program. So since we want to be able to access those fields from our controller, we want to change these to be public. Or you could add getter methods for every text field, but I think for this activity, it's okay to just go ahead and change these to be public because you can always do some integrity checking in your controller. So what I recommend is that you change them. So I did that for total expenses. I changed it to public. And now if I go over to my expenses controller, and I'm in the update portion, so now you'll see that you have access to the total expenses. So let me just start by showing you that. So now I can do expenses panel dot, and there it is, total expenses. So I can access that field now. So in the update, what we're trying to do is, like you said, the GUI already has the right fields because the user typed it in and then they clicked on the update button. So what we really need to do is to make sure that the GUI, what's on the form matches what's in the array list. So since the array list contains objects of expense objects, and those expense objects have set methods, what I recommend is that you first get the object in the array list, and then you use the set method for the particular fields to actually update each field, and then you don't have to worry about the refresh because then it'll automatically be updated. So let me just show you an example. Let's say they're going to change total expenses. So I'm going to comment out call data because I don't think we're going to need that. And so what I would do is I would do list dot, and I would recommend that you just do it for all the fields. There is a way to check and see if text has changed, but to get this done, I would just say let's go ahead and do something along these lines. So let's do list.get, and we want to get the value in the array list that's at the current expense. So we would do expenses panel dot current expense. So now I have the object that I want to update. So then what I would do is I would do dot, and since I can update the total, I think is it total bills that represents total expenses? Is that the field? You have total monthly income. Okay, I'm guessing that total bills is the equivalent to total expenses. So I'm going to say, okay, let's go ahead and, I'm sorry, I want to do the set, right? Because I want to do, there, set total bills. And what I want to do is I want to set it to whatever the user changed it to in the form. Now here's what I was talking about earlier. So I can't just say get the text for the text field total expenses because that's a string and total bills is an integer. So we have to actually do a little bit more work. We have to parse it. So what we can do is we can do integer dot parse int, okay? And parse int takes a string, it gets rid of all the extra spaces and converts whatever numeric value is there to an integer. And so then we're going to do, so this just gets a lot of typing, but we're going to do the expense panel dot, and we want to do total expenses, and then we want to do get text because we want to get the field that the user typed in. And so if we look back through this statement, so this statement says, okay, get the object in the array list, and then set the value for total bills to be equal to the value that the user entered in the text field. Let me go ahead. I'm going to click on the hammer and brush just to rebuild, make sure I don't have any other errors. Looks good. And then I'm going to click on run. All right, so here is an item that has 1,500 for total expenses. And when I put in the new value, I'm going to take out the $sign. So I'm going to put 2000 and I'm going to click on update. And now let's go to next and we'll go back just to make sure. And you can see it is updated. So that means it is updated in the array list. Okay, so that is how you can fix the update. And I know you had a question about the delete. Let me just take a quick look here. So the delete button, if it's not empty, then you want to be able to remove it. And then I guess the problem would be that you might want to add another check to say after you remove it, is it empty? So let's do if list.is empty after you remove it, then what we can do is we can I'm just going to put a comment here and I'm just going to say set all fields to null, and then that way there won't be any data in any of the buttons. Okay, and then if that's not the end, then we can do the refresh. So what you'll do is you just kind of make everything into a null value just by putting double quote for all the fields, and then that way if you wanted to add something from that point you could, but at least then I don't think you have a message field here. You could add a label that prints out a message that says there are no more expenses to show or something along those lines. All right. So I think that'll help. Let's go ahead and see. So if I run it, let's go ahead and see if this works. So if I just click on delete and get rid of all of them, and I didn't actually change them to be null, but you can do that. But what's happening here is that it looks like they're all gone. So if I go to next, end of list, previous, first time in list, so there isn't any more values in the array list. It's just that I didn't wipe out the values in the expense list. Let me just do one value so we can make sure that it's actually working. So I'll go ahead and do expenses panel dot. You might even want to create a method that does the reset here. So let's do dot. I want to do one of the fields, and I think the only field that I have here is total expenses dot set text, and oops, double quote, whoops, sorry, there we go. So now this time when I run it and I delete everything, at least the very first field should be, so if I do, here we go, you can see the first field got wiped out. So just do that for all the fields here, and then that way at least it won't look like there's another record here, because if you look at the array list now, the array list is empty. All right, Dylan, I hope that helped answer your questions, and let me know if you run into any other problems.